Hello, and welcome back to the Coaching with Impact podcast, the go-to podcast for female coaches ready to elevate their online presence and amplify their impact. I am your host, Fifa Tran, and today's episode is for every woman who's ever felt invisible in the world of business funding. Our guest is Erin Sisko, founder of the Elleiance Network and creator of Canada's largest collaboration project for women entrepreneurs. So I'm really excited to dive deeper into that and how that all started. But thank you for being here today.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I love this topic. It's something that we don't talk about a lot. So having you as a guest to really dive deeper and figuring out what the possibilities of social capital and like funding and all that stuff is going to be really interesting to tap into. But before we begin, just tell us a little bit more about your story. What made you start the Elleiance Network? And when did you even realize that social capital was like a missing link for so many women?
Yeah, okay. So I started the Elleiance Network, like literally when I say by accident. I know we've heard that before, but for me, I was working in finance. So I spent about 17 years working in the banking industry in Canada. The last 10 years, I was funding small and medium sized businesses with the Business Development Bank of Canada. And while I was working there, I was in a senior lending position and working my way up the ladder and doing all of the things that ambitious corporate women do. And loving my job, to be honest, because I had never been exposed to entrepreneurs or entrepreneurship in any way in my life. Like, there's no examples of entrepreneurship anywhere in my life. When I landed at the BDC and I realized how interesting and brilliant this pack of human beings are, I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to spend all day, every day talking to these people that are literally changing the world with ideas from their mind. So, yeah, it was a great job for me at the time. And in 2019, early 2019, the bank was launching a program targeting women entrepreneurs. And they asked if I would be the ambassador for women entrepreneurs for Eastern and Northern Ontario. And I gladly said yes. And at this point, I had been with the bank for about 7 or 8 years. And I was starting to get curious about why I was only doing business with men and male owned businesses. And there were very few, if any, women owned businesses in my portfolio at any given time ever. So, what's also very interesting to me is that I didn't start to get curious about that until 7 or 8 years into my career, which now reflecting back on that part, it really does just show how powerful like subconscious and unconscious biases are. Like, I just thought that this was normal and I didn't question anything about it until I started to. And then the bank offered this role, which was perfect for kind of like how my evolution in like just my own growth was going. So that got me talking to more and more women entrepreneurs and asking them what their biggest challenge was in growing their business. And what was shocking to me is every single one of them talked about making the right connections and the difficulties in doing so. So that confused me as a corporate banker on what I was supposed to do to help in that realm. But I did want to do something to help. So I brainstormed and Googled and, really sat with it and like tried to figure out how I could maybe do something meaningful to help them make better connections. And that's when I sent out an email, probably in August of 2019, and said, if I start a group, would you come? And that was the beginning of the Elleiance Network, which I had no idea the impact that email and that first meeting in October of 2019 was like going to mean for the rest of my life. I knew it was powerful. I had 10 women around the first table, and I did have this feeling leaving that first meeting that like this was needed and that something powerful happened around that table that was so desperately needed. But that was it. And from there, a second group was launched in February of 2020, and another group and another group. Obviously, we know COVID hit in March of 2020. So then everything went virtual after that, and groups were still launching. So, my gut feeling in that initial meeting was correct. But, what I was seeing more and more is that there was this narrative and these women who were working so hard and building incredible things, but still weren't hitting these milestones in their business that traditionally are considered successful, in like the frameworks and like what had been built over time with men leading the entrepreneurial sector. And that when they were connected to the right rooms and the right resources, it was starting to create powerful outcomes. So it was just, I could feel the impact that these conversations were having. And that was what was like just making me overflow with feeling like I was onto something amazing. So yeah, that's kind of the how it all started.
And it's always like every time I speak to somebody about their story and how they got into what they did, it's always so magical because it's like you dive into it, all these circumstances happen that put you into this trajectory or this path that was supposed to be made for you, right? And you feel it in your bones, like this is something, and it just like keeps coming up to the signs. And for 7 to 8 years, like you really like you thought about it, but then like nothing changed, right? You thought it was normal, and then we just keep ourselves stuck a lot of the times. So it's incredible to hear how you just decided to like create this group, send that email, and just make it happen. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It was, well, like I said, it was like when I look back, it's like one of those moments where I was so many factors were at play that like I remember thinking to myself like so many times on this journey, like you're just going to take the next little tiny baby step, Erin. Like you're just going to say yes to the next tiny thing and see what happens and see what happens. And then what happened was in August of 2021, the bank came to me and said, shut it down or quit your job. So that was like my major crossroads moment. A lot, we could probably have a full hour-long conversation just around like what was happening in my life behind the scenes, what was going on with the bank, like how this perfect storm came to be. But in the interest of time, essentially that was, when it all came to a head and when I ultimately did decide to leave my very comfortable and cushy corporate job and dive into the world of entrepreneurship myself. At the time, the Elleiance Network was still free. There was no revenue model attached to it. And there was, the loose beginnings of a plan and a hope and a prayer. But it takes me back. One of my favorite quotes now is the ability to cultivate certainty in something that you can't yet see. And I feel like that's such a superpower of entrepreneurs because we are constantly moving in the direction of the unknown with like a vision or an intuition or a feeling of something that like we can see in our mind's eye, an outcome that we're hoping and like working towards with these big goals that we set for ourselves, but no actual tangible proof in front of us that we're going to be able to make it happen. But yet we just go and move towards it and make decisions, like it's just the most fascinating, like we are the only sector of the population, I feel, that has the courage and the craziness, a little bit, the delusion, I guess they say, to do that because it is a bit wild. But look what you can create just based off of that, right? Like some belief in yourself. Lucky for me, again, there's so many factors at play, but I had built this community. I'd been serving 5 groups at the time. I had 50 plus women that I had been serving for 2 years every month for free. But then when it was my turn to make a big decision and take a leap of faith on myself towards my own big dreams, guess who showed up for me? Guess who cheered me on? Guess who opened their wallet and started to pay me when this turned from free to a membership-based organization, because now I needed to monetize what I had built because it was my only source of income at that time. And it was all of them, right? So again, that social capital and the power of surrounding yourself with the right people that believe in you and are a little bit delusional themselves and, will support you and cheer you on, and not just tell you that your dreams and your goals are crazy and like plant seeds of doubt, but actually like get in the car with you and help you build them with their networks and their knowledge and their resources. Like it's just been incredible to experience that for myself now. Like, I know that's the only reason I did it. I'm a corporate girl through and through. Like I said, I didn't even know one entrepreneur. Like, I don't have the story that I was put on this earth to be an entrepreneur. I never thought that I was going to be an entrepreneur until my day came, like until my path just unfolded that way. And I kind of got hit in the face with it so hard that I absolutely could not ignore it. Like every single cell in my body was like, Erin, you are going to regret this so insanely if you do not take this leap and at least try this out. Like you need to go this, like it was crazy on like how hard I was being hit in the face, being like, stop it, go. So I did. And now it's been 3.5 years and it has been a journey. As I'm talking to a fellow entrepreneur. I know you get it, but a lot of cool things have happened also. Like this, I didn't even have a vision this big when I left the bank. That has slowly grown over time, but now we are coast to coast. We have mastermind groups with facilitators in 5 different Canadian cities, and that's growing super quickly. We have like our programming is amazing, and just how we are helping women entrepreneurs in Canada grow their businesses through accessing social capital and financial capital is just a really, really cool thing to be a part of.
That's really, everything just unfolded over time and evolved. It's like from a free model, then it's like this, and you're asking your community now that you've started to monetize it. It's like it all just came together, and now it's transformed into this beautiful thing now that you call the capital L Business Impact Award that you're like creating now. It's incredible. It's such a huge project. Like when I look at it from the outside, I'm like, wow, like I can't believe you accomplished something this huge. Yeah, tell us a little bit about how that came to be and why that is such a unique collaboration model.
Yeah. So, as I just explained, my background is many, many years in finance and funding entrepreneurs. And then I feel like I shifted for a short period of time because of my story about how I was hearing that women were needing support and making better connections. So I kind of shifted everything I was doing into helping women entrepreneurs raise social capital. But the whole time, I also had this like little niggling or like, like that story inside of you that's like, yes, social capital is incredibly important. Like critical to building a business, no questions asked. And like amazing outcomes were I was seeing as a result of like these better connections being formed. And also just, it's not just like bringing the women together and then hoping something happens. Like, we're facilitating the right conversations, we're curating the tables, like we're really got our hands in like all of the aspects of it to ensure that these are the most valuable relationships and that there are valuable outcomes coming out of showing up inside the Elleiance Network. So that, I love that aspect, because not everybody naturally has that gift of networking and knowing how to do that. So I love that we can support, but at the same time, I knew that you could only get so far, and eventually accessing the right type of capital structured in the right way with the right partners was always going to be something that was necessary to truly reach your next level. Like, they don't operate in isolation, right? You need to be raising social capital, and you also need to understand when you need financial capital for your business and what that looks like for you at any given moment. Like, how do you need to raise that for your business, and who are the partners that you need to, like the partnerships that you need to build with what organizations to bring in the right type of financial capital. So I didn't want those in isolation. I really wanted to bring them together as like a couple, because I feel like when they're both working together, that's when like the truly like magical outcomes are felt for women. So, it started off where I'm like, I'm going to launch my own fund and, inject meaningful capital into women-owned businesses. And that still is like a really big goal of mine. But I was like, okay, I have some steps to do there. Before I can get there, what is something else I can do to open up this conversation and fund women in a really meaningful way? And again, just doing some brainstorming and Googling on that. It's amazing what a little brainstorming session and Googling can do. The Capital L Business Impact Award was born, and I had no idea how, like, last year was the first year that it was launched in Canada. And I was able to launch the award with 9 partners who contributed either cash or business services to the program, which allowed the award to provide one $20,000 prize package to a Canadian women-owned business. And it was, I think, a very exciting and successful program. We received 269 applications and made some really great connections for women and provided a life-changing prize package to one Canadian women-owned business. So it was super fun to work on and execute, and it brought some really amazing women and partners into my world. So now we are going for a second year, and I'm super excited because it's grown. So we've went from 9 partners in 2024 to 29 partners in 2025, and $20,000 in prizes to $50,000 in prizes. And we're able to fund 3 Canadian women-owned businesses this year. Yeah, my big goal, because I'm like, I just don't dream small, but this award, the goal is that it grows to $500,000 in prizes and cash for Canadian women entrepreneurs. And we are well on our way. So this year, applications open on September 2nd. And yeah, we just have so many different options of prizes to give away to the applicants and different ways to serve and support them in their business. But it's all for Canadian women entrepreneurs, and specifically those women who have ever felt unfundable or invisible in the current funding models that are available in Canada, and unsupported or denied or ignored, told to that they needed someone to come on as a co-signer, told that they didn't tick enough boxes, that they didn't understand their business model enough, like whatever sort of feedback they were getting that kind of left them out in the cold, or that they never even put their name forward because they didn't think that they were prepared enough or far enough along or didn't have a right connection in there, So it can be very intimidating. But again, when you have the right network around you and the right people around you to help guide you through that process, it can really take you much, much further.
It's incredible the impact that you're making and how quickly it's grown. It literally like exponentially grew the amount of capital that you're able to create for this award. And also, like you mentioned, something really interesting. You mentioned the word unfundable. And I really want to like dive a little deeper into this topic, because I know that there's so many different grants and things out there, and ways to access capital. And there's a lot of myths around the idea of like, service-based businesses, like not being able to access this money because they are service-based business. And a lot of times you think about like e-commerce or like product-based businesses that would go for these like huge grants or like, to access capital. So let's like talk a little bit more about that. Like, what is your definition of what an unfundable business is?
Yeah. You're right. There are so many. So when I look at raising capital, I see three main buckets or opportunities to be able to do that. So there are grants, there are like traditional banks and credit unions, and there's private capital, so angels or VCs, friends and family. And they all have different rules that they're playing by, which is what makes it a complex system for an entrepreneur who that's not their zone of genius, right? It's like, okay, the grant, everything in the grant bucket requires and wants something different than the traditional bank funding model. And the banks want something completely different than what the private sector funding model might require. So it's definitely, it can see, like, I understand how it can seem overwhelming because it is. When I say unfundable, it's what I kind of touched on before. I've heard way too many stories of, the ones that even bother me the most are the women that count themselves out before they even raise their hand to take a step forward and give it a shot. But again, I understand that. And there's so much going on beneath that. And that's probably because they know another woman or another entrepreneur that has invested the time and the energy to pitch their business and put the financial package together and create the projections and invest 3 months of their life into trying to satisfy whichever funder they're approaching at that time, to be told in the end, this doesn't tick enough boxes. This isn't a project that we're interested in at this time. We don't want to look at that industry. You don't have enough years in business. You don't have enough income to fund this. Your projections are too ambitious. We don't trust your projections. This isn't an industry that I understand, so I don't want to get involved. Maybe if you brought your husband in to co-sign, we could take a look. Do you own a home? I recommend you first going to your personal lender and refinancing your family home as your first source of an injection. So that's actually something that I was told myself just 4 months ago for a business that I'm involved in. So there's all of these ways that either softly or not so softly get told, no, we're not interested. That, we all know multiple people, if you're in the entrepreneurial ecosystem or in a founder space, of founders who have come up against those challenges. And it just makes it that you don't want to go through that for yourself, or you don't want to do it again. So then you don't go seeking out the funding opportunities that are apparently available for you. And then that stunts your growth. And what I just find fascinating and infuriating is that then we don't go for the funding. And the outcome of not going for the funding means that we don't grow nearly as fast. We never reach our full potential. And the narrative just keeps cycling around that women-owned businesses stay small because women are incapable or are risk averse, or these stories that aren't true. And there's so much underneath, like so many layers underneath that first need to be addressed before we jump to these crazy conclusions. Because from what I see in working with hundreds and hundreds of Canadian women entrepreneurs, none of that is the truth. Like, we know that, women are just as capable, women are just as smart, we're just as creative, we're just as risky, we're like all of the things that when it comes to entrepreneurship, there are there's obviously some key differences between women and men, but those aren't them, like we lead differently, but often in like such a better way. Like, actually, there are so many statistics out there that when a woman is able to raise capital for her business, the success rate and like the ROI on that for the investor is 60% better than when they put their money in male-owned businesses. So even with all of these statistics backing us, we still face so many roadblocks. And just like if I bring it back to the very beginning of my story, so many of them are like these unconscious, subconscious biases that if have an opportunity to open up these conversations and like unlock some of these ideas for both women and for the funding system in Canada to help make it a bit more equal and a bit easier, then I feel like that's what I'm supposed to be doing. So this is me trying to do that.
Yeah, you're making waves. You're the change maker, and we need people like you to change the narrative around this, right? It's something that, it's 2025 now and people are still talking about it. That means there's something that's massively like not like we're not thinking about it. Like, we're not things are not being done around it enough for us to be able to change this narrative. So I love the awareness that you bring to this and the solution that you're creating for more women to access capital so that they don't have to build in isolation, right? So they know what opportunities there are available out there for them to build their businesses, especially knowing, now it's harder to build businesses with a recession coming up and everything. Like, we still think that we can't access this capital, and we just, like, for myself too, like, I never really thought about like getting grants or anything because I already told myself I have a service-based businesses and a business, and I have to like make all this money myself. So like with the Capital L Business Impact Award, like, who are the types of people? Like, is it open to everybody? Like, is there any limitations? Is there anything specific that we need to know if we're interested in applying and being a part of this?
Yeah, no, actually. So you have to be a Canadian woman entrepreneur. And we are specifically looking to fund the women who have felt unfundable, who are operating in industries and in sectors that are historically left out of grant applications. They're left out of boardroom tables. So you touched on a big one, service-based businesses. And a large majority of service-based businesses in Canada are started and led by women. So that's a big one. Even other sectors that, besides service-based, sectors such as hospitality, food and bev, like all the restaurants, like these are industries that have like a black mark on them. And yet what they do for the economy and, jobs that are created and healthy communities and like the income being cycled through economies used in such a positive way, is happening on our own every single day. Like we're doing such amazing things with the income that is generated through our business and in creating jobs and in creating opportunities for others in our country and beyond in our communities. So they're so powerful and they're so needed, but yet from a funding and a financing perspective, to be honest, they have a black mark because they're called risky, and therefore the banks want to turn their back on them, and because they're too risky, and it makes it very difficult. So when something is considered too risky and nobody wants to fund it, guess what happens? They are risky because nobody wants to fund it. And you run out of cash flow, which is one of the biggest risks in buying a business. Like that whole cash is king, that is still a real thing in business. If you have absolutely no cash flow and no working capital, you eventually get strangled by it. Your business is no longer, right? That you can't pay your bills anymore. So that is a real risk. And when you don't have access to the right resources, the odds that that happens to your business are much higher, So again, by leaving these industries out of traditional funding models and saying we won't fund them because they're too risky of an industry, what's happening is actually not that surprising, is that they do become really risky because they can't access the resources that they need. So I think that across all aspects of funding, we need to reevaluate what we are leaving out and why, and what the actual consequences are of leaving out those industries, because we need service-based industries. We need women entrepreneurs. We need restaurants and hotels and tourism and the creative industries and artists and all of these other sectors that honestly, when you look at a funding application, they just don't have a box to tick. It's just like they've just been completely forgotten. And so the Capital L Business Impact Award, to answer your question, is for all of those women.
I love it.
Just for those women, actually. So yeah, that is those are the only people that we want to fund. So we kind of want to flip the model on its head for this one.
That's incredible. Yeah, I love that you're really focusing in on the ones that are really not traditionally funded and creating this opportunity for those to take this chance and be supported with the capital that they need. Yeah, I love that.
I'm actually really excited about it.
I'm excited for you, honestly. Like I've been seeing you post everywhere about it, and like I'm like, okay, what is Erin up to? And like you're really making some big moves out there. And I'm really excited that the listeners today like are really just tuning in on this, learning more about you, what you're creating for people, and yeah, just giving advice for an awareness, spreading the awareness that this is something that's still happening in the world right now. And people need to know about it. People need to do something about it. And people like you are out there in the world making waves in the industry. So, to kind of close off the conversation, I'd love to ask one more question. What is a powerful, like for anybody listening today, like what's one powerful first step that the listener can take today to start building a social capital and just increase their chances of getting funded?
Yeah. So there are many steps. I think I just want to say one first step is to make it a priority, is to put it on your calendar, to put it on your to-do list, to start thinking about it, right? Like to know that raising social capital, that raising your relationship capital is a critical piece to doing business. And it's maybe not your most comfort zone. And that's where organizations like the Elleiance Network come in to help support that and make that step a lot easier for you. But even if you aren't ready to join a community right now, then when you make it a priority for yourself, a goal that you are going to focus on, it is so incredible what happens when it's just on your mind, like any other goal. And like who shows up in your inbox, who sends you a DM, who's a recommended friend, like you will start seeing in your peripheral vision, everywhere you go, the recommendations of people that you need to bring into your world. And then I just encourage you to be super open to those opportunities. Like, understand that you are now seeing these connection opportunities because you've made it a priority and you've made it a goal, and to trust that the right people are showing up in your world in like all the different ways. Like, I actually, what this is making me think of is yesterday I had an Elleiance event and I was talking to a brand new member, a woman that I have never met before. And I asked her how she had heard about the Elleiance Network. And she's like, oh, well, actually, like a couple of weeks ago, I went into Staples to get some posters printed for an event that I was doing. And the woman behind the counter said, are you a member of the Elleiance Network? And she said no. And she's like, oh, you got to check it out. I think that you should join the Elleiance Network. And I'm just like, are you for real? I'm like, who is this woman at Staples? And like, how does she know about the Elleiance Network? But that was, and I would bet money. And then she went home and she signed, she's a member and she went to her first event yesterday. And I met her for the first time. And you know what I mean? Like, the rest is history now. But it's just, the craziest things happen when you are open to seeing and hearing just what is around you, like it's not even a big job. It's literally just setting an intention to pay attention to this. Like, this is my goal. I want to meet somebody who is a fellow entrepreneur that has an amazing podcast. Like, that was a goal of mine for a little bit. I want to meet more podcast hosts. And what would happen, it still blows my mind, but it's why I love entrepreneurship so much, is that then I would be, you're just going about your day, but I would be like scrolling on LinkedIn one evening, and all of a sudden I would see all of these people in my LinkedIn community that have podcasts that I've just never noticed before. I've been connected with them for years, potentially, and I just have never noticed until now because I set it as an intention. So I think that's just my best advice, is if you take anything away from this conversation, is just know how valuable raising your social capital is as an entrepreneur. And all that you have to do is set it as an intention or a goal that for the next 3 months, you're going to try to bring in, 5 or 7 valuable connections into your network of the people that you need to meet that are going to help you reach your next level. And then go about your day paying attention, because they're going to show up in your path. So I'm excited for you. Excited for you to meet them.
I'm really excited that you mentioned that, because it's like so relevant to what I'm thinking about today and lately too. It's just the moment you decide that something is going to work out for you or something is going to happen for you, it is going to happen. The universe just magically aligns itself.
It feels like magic. It really does. It's never failed me when I set, it's like when you say how the award grew so quickly. Like, you sit here and I know you feel like, I'm like, I don't know, like, I'm not special. You know what I mean? But like, I started it And then I just decided, I'm like, hey, you're just like, how am I going to figure this out? And what showed up in my world, with obviously like some action and some intention from me for sure, is mind blowing, like, it's just like, I don't know what the magic formula is. Like, I just said that I wanted to work on this, and then I slowly started to take the little steps to work on it. And then also, like, the magic mixed in there, right, is like, who knows where it could take you. Yeah, that's the magic sauce right there.
I love that advice, and thank you for sharing that, because that really is what it is. Like, as long as you jump, you take the leap, the universe will catch you. Everything will align itself. And I commend you, and I thank you for doing the wonderful work that you're doing to spread this awareness and build such a wonderful community and create this impact for those who need it most. And if people want to follow you also, like, where's the best place that they can find you?
Well, the two platforms that I show up on the most are Instagram. And Instagram, you can find me. My handle is Elleiance, and it's ELLE dot. And then also, I love showing up on LinkedIn. So either my personal page, which is Erin Sisko, or the Elleiance Network page, which is under the Elleiance Network. And if anyone is interested in staying up to date and current about all things award and social capital and business masterminding, they can subscribe to the newsletter, which just go to our website. It's will pop up for you, which is Elleiance.
Awesome. So I'm going to link everything in the show notes so that you can access that. And remind us again when the one in September, for the Impact Award, is going to happen again?
On September 2nd.
September 2nd. So definitely check that out and connect with Erin. Follow her on her journey. She's doing big things. And as always, like, I really appreciate it that you've taken the time to just spread your knowledge and your wisdom with our viewers. And for those who are listening, if you enjoyed this episode and you found value, it would mean the world to us if you gave us a rating and leave us a review or a voice note. We listen to those, and we might even feature you if you leave something. So thank you once again for tuning in. Thank you, Erin.
Thank you.